Well, it's about 3 minutes after 6 and people are still coming in.
Very good.
I think we should begin. Good evening. I am Vernice Davis Anthony from SEMPQIC, Southeast Michigan Perinatal Quality Improvement Coalition. And we want to welcome you to the Region 10 Infant and Maternal Health Data Meeting. This similar data meeting will be held all around the state in each one of the 10 regions. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're the second region to kick off with the data. So again, welcome. The purpose of the meeting, why are we here? If you would, okay, the agenda then next. Okay, the purpose, there we go. Okay, the purpose is to bring Region 10 community of maternal child health stakeholders, as well as SEMPQIC members, up to date on the most recent data that's available, current, and relevant to improving the lives of our mothers, babies, and families, as well as reducing preventable morbidity and mortality. And what we're hoping today, and our intent is, next slide, Devin. Our intent is that the data be used for improving and evaluating programs, serving the community, creating goals and evaluating progress, as well as impacts of broad community collaboratives, and we are one, providing a baseline for collaborations. We're hoping that the data would be used for policy and advocacy work. There's a lot to be done in that area. And also we're hoping that that you as participants will be sharing this data with families and the community to increase awareness and action. So moving back to the agenda, I'm going to quickly run through the agenda because we won't be stopping for introductions between each. The first item of business will be the actual data presentation, and that's going to be done by Dawn Shanafelt, who is actually a member of the Region 10 Coalition and very, very helpful to our goals and objectives. So Dawn Shanafelt and Chris Fussman, and Chris is the epidemiologist. He's the manager of maternal and child health epi section. So thank you, Dawn and Chris. We'll be hearing from you in a minute. Then we're going to allow some time for questions and comments. In the meantime, use the chat for questions and comments, because that's where we'll be pulling the questions from. We're going to just keep everybody on mute, but we'll be looking at the questions and we'll be making sure that most of those questions, to the degree at all possible, is answered right on the spot if you would identify who you are directing your question to. If not, we will definitely get to those questions later. Making the data human, a qualitative understanding. We don't want you to go away from this meeting just with the numbers and charts in your head. We really want you to think about that these are human beings, these are families, this is our community. So we have invited Robena Hill, and Robena is the lead home visitor and community-based doula with Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association. And Robena will be sharing some of her personal experiences and stories about some of the very people that our numbers represent. Then you'll be hearing from Alethia Carr, who is one of the co-leaders of SEMPQIC, but Alethia is also our expert, in-house expert on issues around equity and racism. So Alethia will be talking about racism and its impacts on the data. Then we'll be going back to questions and answers again, and then talk a little bit about where we go from here. So that's how the next hour and a half is going to present itself. So why don't we begin? Let me introduce the other members of the team. I think Dr. Iris Taylor is on, who's also the co-lead, myself, Alethia, Carr, and Iris. We also have Devin, and you probably all know Devin Parrott, at least the name. She's managing the process and keeps us on time and on target. I believe we also have on the line Jennifer from MPHI, who works with us on evaluations, and Andrell Certified, who also works with our team and focuses on community outreach. Did I miss anybody, team? Gotcha. Okay, why don't we move on into the data? And again, submit your questions while you're listening to the data. We're urging you to think about how it can be used. Think about if you have any aha moments from the data, put them in the chat. If you have any thoughts or conclusions that you want to share from having seen the data, put it in the chat, in addition to any questions that you might have. So why don't we begin? I don't know if it's Chris or Dawn is going to open it up, but I'm passing it on to you guys.
Sounds good. This is Chris. I just want to make sure before we start that everyone can hear me as well as see my slides. If someone just wants to give me a quick yes, and then I'll get rolling here.
Yes.
You're good, Chris.
Perfect. So so as Vern mentioned, Dawn and I are going to kind of work together on this presentation. I'm going to take the first half, and Dawn will take the remaining slides. We have quite a few slides to go through, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So as you probably guessed, we're here to present maternal and infant health statistics for Prosperity Region 10. Okay, first we're going to start with infant mortality from 2010 to 2019. As all of us on this meeting are probably already aware of, the press release went out, I don't know, a few weeks ago about the Michigan infant mortality rate being the lowest ever reported for the state of Michigan. As the most populous region within the state, as you can see from this slide, there was a corresponding decrease in the infant mortality rate from 2018 to 2019 in Region 10 as well. With the current infant mortality rate from 2019 within Region 10 of 7.2 infant deaths per 1,000 live births. I think obviously heading in the right direction. My only point here is it's only one point in time, so I think we're going to need a couple more years of data after 2019 to actually see if that's a true decrease or if it's just a kind of a random fluctuation in the data. But obviously heading in the right direction based on the last couple years. Moving on to infant mortality rates by maternal race ethnicity within Prosperity Region 10. And of note, so most of these slides that are split out by demographic variables are actually 2015 through 2019 combined. We did that to give us enough sample and to be able to provide rates and percentages for as many populations as we could. As you can see from this slide, as we're all aware of, there remains a significant Black-white disparity in infant mortality within Michigan overall, as well as Prosperity Region 10. Since Prosperity Region 10 is the most populous region within the state, you'll see that for the most part, for most of these slides, that the rates and percentages that are reported for Prosperity Region 10 most always mirror that of the Michigan rates. And for all of these slides, the Michigan rates will be in the little blue box that's normally on the right lower side of the screen, just for your reference. Moving on to infant mortality rates by both maternal race ethnicity and geography within Region 10. We added this slide just recently to just kind of give you a look at what's happening in each of the counties as well as City of Detroit specifically. I'm not going to go through and explain every single one of these points, but just some general things that I noticed from looking at this. Obviously, starting with Oakland County, you'll see that the Black non-Hispanic infant mortality rate within Oakland County, which is the orange line, has been going down pretty consistently from year to year over the past 5 years, with the white non-Hispanic rate being pretty flat, which is resulting in the black-white disparity coming down quite a bit for Oakland County over the last 5 years. For the city of Detroit, we see that I'm sure you're all aware of this by now as well. You see that very large dip from 2018 to 2019 for the city of Detroit for Black non-Hispanics. Obviously a good thing, and as well as the white staying pretty level over the last few years, which has obviously resulted in the black-white disparity within the city of Detroit going all the way down to only 1.3 for the most current data year. Another point I wanted to mention is just looking at Macomb County, which is obviously slightly different trends in compared to the other two that I just mentioned. You'll see that for this, in Macomb County, the black non-Hispanic population, the infant mortality rate has actually been increasing quite a bit over the last 5 years, with the white non-Hispanic staying relatively flat, which overall you'll see that the black-white disparity in Macomb County has actually increased from 2.3 to 3.2 over the last 5 years. So something to definitely keep an eye on there. Okay, moving on to infant mortality rates by maternal age for Prosperity Region 10. You'll see here that the highest infant mortality rates are in the younger moms, the moms less than 20 years of age, and the infant mortality rate decreases with increasing age, essentially. And similar to the race ethnicity rates, these Prosperity Region rates are similar to that of the Michigan rates overall. Moving on to infant mortality rates by intended payment source. Not surprising to me anyways, since your Medicaid births are some of your more higher risk births. The infant mortality rate among women that reported Medicaid as the intended payment source is 10.2 deaths per 1,000 live births, compared to only 5.6 deaths per 1,000 live births within the women that reported private insurance as the intended payment source. These are a little bit higher than the Michigan rates for these particular categories, but not incredibly too far off. Okay, infant mortality rate by city within Prosperity Region 10. We usually combine the years 2015 through 2019 into a 5-year grouping to allow us to provide you with rates for additional counties. But for this one, we wanted to show the trend from year to year and how particular cities were going on from year to year. So for this, we only had Detroit and Pontiac that had reportable infant mortality rates for each of the 5 years in the chart. As you can see, like most of the infant mortality rates that we've seen for Prosperity Region 10, specifically for Detroit, there's that large dip for Detroit from 2018 to 2019. Unlike Detroit, for instance, Pontiac is the orange line. You'll see they've pretty much leveled off since 2016. And just of note for this slide, we also included the table on the right-hand side of the slide that includes a couple of annual infant mortality rates for a few of the other major cities within the Prosperity Region. We didn't put them on the map because it cluttered it up, because they would just be points and not 5 consecutive points, but they're there for your reference. Okay, moving on to the infant mortality rates by census tract for Prosperity Region 10. For all of the census tract maps, they're going to be a year behind all of the other. Since all of the other data are from 2015 to 2019, you'll see that these are from 2014 to 2018. The reason for that is that the birth cohort files are used for these particular maps. The difference from the birth cohort is essentially, for instance, the birth cohort for 2018 would be all babies that were born in 2018, following them up through their first year of life to see if they had an infant death. So, for example, the kids that were born on December 31st of 2018, you would have to wait all the way through December 31st of 2019 to determine if they had an infant death, which then would be included in the birth cohort file. With all of the other statistics, we just use the resident birth and resident death files. So essentially all births within a given year and all infant deaths within a given year. So the numerator and denominator for those, they're not a direct match, because it's not like it's not a linked file. So it's just all the infants for infant mortality would be all the infants that died before their first birthday in 2019, regardless if they were born in 2018 or 19. If that doesn't make sense, I can clarify that later, but I just thought I'd add that in for a reasoning for why the data year is different. So in terms of the census tract maps, first I'll direct you to the legend here with the pale yellow, the light blue, and the dark blue. So the light blue is always going to be signify similar to the state average for this case infant deaths, but we'll see the same for low birth weight and preterm birth here in a few minutes. The pale yellow color will indicate a significantly better in terms of infant death rate than that of the state. And then the flip side of that, the darker blue will indicate significantly higher or worse infant death rates than that of the state overall. So with that being said, obviously there's a lot of census tracts within the Tri-County area, but I guess you'll see some subtle differences when it comes to the low birth weight and preterm birth maps. But for infant mortality, you'll see kind of the darker blue, the worse off in terms of infant mortality rates, kind of dispersed out quite a bit within the Tri-County area, but also it's very clear where the city of Detroit is in the mix on the map. So I think to expand on that, the next slide is just the city of Detroit. Well, I guess not just the city of Detroit, because Highland Park and Hamtramck are in there as well, but which we kind of just sectioned those off. So you kind of gave you some sort of relation to where everything else is. As you can see, there's a lot of dark blue census tracts on the map. There's a few of the pale yellows on the map. And when I look at these maps, I kind of like, I automatically draw my attention to the not so much like I see the dark blues, but I pay more attention to the pale yellows, because I'm like, okay, what are those pale yellow areas doing that are making them have the lower infant mortality rates? So it's kind of way I go through the process of analyzing these maps per se. Okay, the next couple slides are, we go into the causes of infant death for Prosperity Region 10. I have it in this slide's for 2018 and the next slide's for 2019. I did that because of obviously the obvious drop in infant mortality from 2018 to 2019. We wanted to take a look to see if there were any differences in the causes of infant death between those 2 years, to see if we can glean any more information on that. So to explain all of the information on this slide, I'll first start with the pie chart on the left-hand side of the screen. So this is a distribution for all infant deaths within Prosperity Region 10 for 2018. There's a broad category. They categorize the infant deaths broadly into the 5 or so categories here: the congenital anomalies, the infections, injury, perinatal conditions, and sleep-related deaths. So the arrow in the middle to the one on the right, what that's doing is actually for the 56% of infant deaths in Prosperity Region 10 that were categorized as due to perinatal conditions, that 56% is further subdivided into more specific causes, and that's what's in the pie chart on the right. So the pie chart on the right only reflects the 56% of that are in the overall pie chart on the left. With that being said, of that 56% that were due to perinatal conditions, you'll see that the greater majority, 56%, were due to disorders related to short gestation and low birth weight. So essentially the extreme prematurity complications and so on. The next highest which is the 27%, is in the other category. We did some further checking on the other category today to get a better sense for what all is included in that category, since it is such a large proportion of the total. And we discovered that the majority of that 27% are things like neoplasms and anemias and other conditions not otherwise specified. And then the second most frequent condition within that other category was like pulmonary disorders and things like respiratory distress syndrome that led to the infant death. So with that being said, take a mental picture of this because we couldn't fit it all on one slide. So now this is the same thing for 2019. I see it essentially as being the same. It's very similar to that of 2018. I was hoping that it would give us a better idea of like what changed from 2018 to 2019 in terms of the causes of infant death, but it really doesn't. So the percentage due to perinatal conditions went from 56 to 63%. So not a very huge change there. Also wanted to mention that the sleep-related infant deaths, which was I think 16% in 2018, went down to 14%, which is really not much of a change there. In terms of the perinatal conditions, the subdivided perinatal conditions, all those are pretty much identical to what was reported in 2019. So like I said, there wasn't really any obvious, from these two slides, wasn't really obvious change that that would help us explain that decrease from 2018 to 2019 in terms of infant mortality. I think this is the last slide under the infant mortality section. This gives you a look at the infant deaths by cause and race and ethnicity for Prosperity Region 10. As you can see, there's really not much difference between white non-Hispanic and black non-Hispanic by year as well as by category. There, with the exception of there appears to be a higher percentage of congenital anomalies within the white non-Hispanic population, but other than that, the majority of the rest of the percentages are very similar by race as well as from year to year. Okay, moving on to low birth weight. So you'll see a very similar set of slides for both low birth weight and preterm birth as well. So low birth weight, this is a trend in low birth weight for Prosperity Region 10 for the last 10 years. A little bit contrast from that of infant mortality. You'll see that the low birth weight percentage within Prosperity Region 10 has essentially been flat over the last 10 years, and how it compares to Michigan overall. Michigan overall is for 2019 was at 8.8%. And as you can see for 2019 Prosperity Region 10, it's 9.9. So a little bit higher than that of Michigan overall. In terms of low birth weight by maternal race ethnicity, this looks pretty similar to, at least in terms of the black-white disparity with infant mortality. You'll see that Black non-Hispanic populations a little over 2 times more likely to have a low birth weight baby than that of white non-Hispanic population. In terms of how Region 10 compares to Michigan overall, with the exception of the American Indian population within Prosperity Region 10, which has quite low birth weight percentage at 4.1 compared to 8.8 for the state overall. Okay, so here's the percentage low birth weight by maternal race, ethnicity, and geography for Prosperity Region 10. What to point out here? I think you'll see there's not as much variation by county for low birth weight when compared to infant mortality. You'll most of the counties are the percentages for white non-Hispanic and Black non-Hispanic populations have been pretty consistent over the last 5 years, which has resulted in the black-white disparity essentially being unchanged over those years as well. I think in terms of the city of Detroit, the one thing to point out here, you'll see that it appears that the black-white disparity has decreased over from 2017 to 2019, but it's for a bad reason. It's because the white non-Hispanic population is increasing and not the other way around. So it's improving, but for the wrong reasons. Okay, now looking at low birth weight by maternal age, similar to that of infant mortality, the women that were most likely to have a low birth weight birth were the younger women, the less than 20 years of age. And like infant mortality, it decreases the percentage, low birth weight percentage decreases with increasing age of the mom. Also similar to infant mortality, the low birth weight by intended payment source, the women that reported their intended payment sources being Medicaid were significantly, had a significantly higher percentage of low birth weight than that of the women that reported private insurance. Now moving on to low birth weight by census tract for Prosperity Region 10. Just to mention the same color scheme works for these maps as well. The pale yellow being the lower low birth weights lower than that of the state average, then the dark blues being the low birth weights that are higher than the state average. When I look at this, I see unlike that of the infant mortality census tract map where there was some darker blues more dispersed throughout the tri-county area for low birth weight, and you'll see in preterm birth as well, is that it seems like the more of the darker blue area is more concentrated in the city of Detroit. So we'll move to a map that's just showing the city of Detroit. You see a lot more, like I said, you see a lot more dark blue in this city of Detroit map when compared to infant mortality, which is these kind of threw me off, because you would think that low birth weight and preterm birth being predictors of infant mortality, it seems like you would see similar color distribution within all three sets of maps, but you don't. So that was kind of puzzling to me, and thought I would just mention that for people to kind of ponder a bit. Moving on to preterm birth for Prosperity Region 10. Similar to that of low birth weight, you'll see that preterm birth in Prosperity Region 10 has been pretty consistent from year to year over the last 10 years, with it being 10.8% for 2019 for Prosperity Region 10, which is really not that far off from the Michigan percent, which is currently at 10.3%. Moving on to preterm birth by maternal race ethnicity for Prosperity Region 10. Once again, we see the black-white disparity, but it's a little it's less pronounced than it was in low birth weight. So hopefully that, I'm not sure what that means, but it seems like a good thing. In terms of the other race ethnicities, like usual, they're pretty similar to that of Michigan overall. Moving on to percent preterm by both maternal race ethnicity and geography. A couple things to point out from these charts. I think for Macomb County, you'll see it's mostly, I mean, you'll see some variation from year to year, but I think I would consider all of those to be pretty flat over that 5-year period. Similar to that of Oakland County, and as well as the black-white disparity in Oakland County is essentially unchanged over the last 5 years. In terms of Wayne County excluding Detroit, you can see there's the white non-Hispanic population has been relatively stable over the last 5 years, with a pretty decent sized increase in the black non-Hispanic population, which in turn has caused the black-white disparity within Wayne County excluding Detroit to increase from 1.1 to 1.6 over the last 5 years. So, and then finally for the city of Detroit, the black-white disparity for the city of Detroit for preterm birth is definitely all over the place, and it's as you can see, it's primarily due to the great fluctuation from year to year in the white non-Hispanic population within the city of Detroit. Since you can also see here that the preterm birth percentage for the black non-Hispanic population within the city of Detroit has remained pretty flat over the last 5 years. Okay, next we have preterm birth by maternal age. Unlike the first two, which there was a more of a downward trend in the adverse outcome with increasing age, there's kind of a bit of a U-shaped curve with respect to maternal age, and in terms of how those percentages relate to Michigan overall, they're fairly similar, but maybe a little bit higher on the higher end compared to the Michigan percentage for all three age categories. Next, we have preterm birth by intended payment source. This goes back to the similar pattern of both low birth weight and infant mortality, which are the women reporting Medicaid as an intended payment source had a higher percentage of preterm birth than that of the women that reported private insurance. Okay, and moving on to the last census tract map for preterm birth, you'll see that preterm birth actually goes back a little more to looking similar to the map we had for infant mortality, which you had some more distinct dark blue areas that were spread out throughout the Tri-County area. But once again, we still have the condensed blue areas within the city of Detroit itself. But with that being said, we also, I think for both the preterm birth and the infant mortality maps, you see there's definite areas that we could go to, which the pale yellow color, go to determine what they're doing, to hopefully we can spread what they're doing out to the surrounding census tracts to kind of lead a more grassroots movement towards improvement. That was my last slide. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Dawn to finish out these slides. And Dawn, just let me know when you want me to switch from slide to slide, and I'll do that for you.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone. And as Chris mentioned, we're going to finish the data slides. Then we'll move to the Q&A portion. And again, I want to reorient everyone. Vern did that in the beginning, and I just want to do it right now since we're about 2/3 through the slides or halfway through. Again, all the numbers that we're speaking of are people's mothers, sisters, cousins, babies. So just keep that in mind as we're looking at the data. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the percentage of women who smoked during pregnancy by maternal race and ethnicity in Prosperity Region 10. And now we're back to 2015 through 2019. And you'll see that Prosperity Region 10, being the lighter blue, in all categories and areas across the slide are doing better than the state of Michigan. Next slide, please. And we're going to move into breastfeeding, initiation, and duration in the state of Michigan. So you'll see that the top blue line is the state of Michigan, and the bottom orange line is Prosperity Region 10. And I'm going to answer a question, even though I'm not supposed to, but the smoking is referring to nicotine use. So back to the breastfeeding, initiation, and duration slide. You'll see that Region 10 is just below the state of Michigan overall in our state. We do a really good job at breastfeeding initiation. And then as time goes on, at 1 month of age for the baby, 2 months, and 3 months, you'll see the numbers start to decline. If you look to the right, though, there is a statistical significance in 2 points between Region 10 and the state of Michigan, and that's when babies are 1 month of age and 3 months of age. So there's a statistical drop there in the region. Next slide, please. Now we're going to move into late entry into prenatal care. And again, this is Prosperity Region 10 from 2015 through 2019. Next slide, Chris. And before we begin, late entry into prenatal care refers to prenatal care that starts in the final trimester, the 3rd trimester. So months 7 through 9. And again, similar to some of the other slides that I just showed a moment ago, you'll see that Prosperity Region 10 is doing better than the rest of the state of Michigan when it comes to late entry into prenatal care. So it's really good. Next slide, please. Now we're going to move into barriers to prenatal care, and this time frame is 2016 through 19, and it's for the state of Michigan. And so overall in the state of Michigan, these are barriers that are reported through PRAMS, pregnancy risk and monitoring, surveillance. I might have gotten it wrong, and this is the 1st trimester. So these are moms who wanted to start prenatal care sooner. And these are some of the barriers that they listed. So things such as moms didn't know they were pregnant. They couldn't get an appointment when they wanted to. They had other things happening in their lives. I'm not going to read all these, but just the first few. Not enough money or money to pay insurance copays and things. No transportation. And this is the next one is something that we've heard in some other regions as well too that I've spoken at. And this is for the state. So again, but that the health, that the doctor, I'm not going to say the health plan, but the doctor wouldn't start the patient in prenatal care until after the 1st trimester. And again, I've heard this in particularly Southwest Michigan. Next slide, please. So here's a comparison. And on this slide, you'll see And I'm going to go to my notes here. So we're looking on the left of prenatal care barriers with significant differences based on race and ethnicity. And so if we look at disparities in barriers, you'll see that transportation is a disparity, and then not wanting to disclose the pregnancy is a disparity as well too. And those are both listed here, and I'm not going to infer as to why a pregnancy, a mom wouldn't want to disclose a pregnancy, but I'm certain we all know many reasons as to why that would be the case. The next to the right here, you'll see the number of prenatal care barriers for women with late or no prenatal care. And so you'll see that the number of barriers is just astounding. That's a percentage, but you'll see 46.1, 28, 25.9. So again, there's rationale as to why prenatal care is started late in moms. Next slide, please. We're going to move into pregnancy intention, and this is for Prosperity Region 10 only for the years of 2016 through 2018. Before I talk about pregnancy intention, I just want to make a point here. We see disparities in maternal and infant outcomes, whether there's intention or non-intention, and primarily due to the root cause of systemic racism. So I just want to point that out. So for example, if you're an African-American mom who's affluent, has a PhD, the potential for an infant poor maternal and infant health outcome is higher than a white non-Hispanic mom who has less than a high school education and is of low socioeconomic status. So I just wanted to level set that here. So here we're looking at intended pregnancy for the years of 2016 through 2018. And we're looking across the various prosperity regions. So the first bar here, the dark blue, that's the whole state of Michigan, 57.5%. And then Prosperity Region 1 is the Upper Peninsula, 2 and 3 is Northern Lower Michigan, so your Traverse City through Alpena-ish area. Region 4 is West Michigan, so Grand Rapids area. Region 5 are the Great Lakes Bay area. Region 6 is the Thumb. Region 7 is the capital area, Lansing and surrounding areas. Region 8 is Southwest Michigan. Region 9 is basically the Ann Arbor area right in between Southwest and Southeast, that general area in the middle. And so then you can see where Region 10 falls when it comes to intended pregnancy in the state of Michigan. So actually Region 10 is actually 56.3 in comparison to 57.5 for the state. So although there is variation across the state, none of the differences are large enough for to achieve statistical significance. Next slide, please. We're going to move into neonatal abstinence syndrome for Region 10 from 2010 through 2019. Next slide. So neonatal abstinence syndrome is a set of symptoms that are experienced by an infant that was exposed to a substance in utero. The substances can vary from opioids to nicotine to other substances that the baby was exposed to. And when the baby's born, they can have a host of symptoms. And those symptoms are diagnosed as neonatal abstinence syndrome. So when you look here, and also to point out too, this only includes pharmacological treatment of NAS or neonatal abstinence syndrome. And that's really important to point out because as science has come out and interventions have improved over time, we're doing a much better job in the state of Michigan and in Prosperity Region 10 of treating babies with non-pharmacological means when possible. And those things are decreased stimulation, bonding and attachment with mom or caregiver, breastfeeding when breastfeeding is safe to do so depending on the substance. So a host of things to really soothe the baby without pharmacological treatment. So you'll see that in 2010, the rate just climbed right up. And this really goes right along with when we saw the opioid epidemic in our state. And then you'll see from 2016, 17, 18, and 19, you'll see that that's beginning to come down. And again, a lot of that's related to early identification of potential substances that result in neonatal abstinence syndrome and treatment for moms. And then also the additional interventions, like I mentioned, that are really helpful for moms and babies to bond and to decrease those symptoms and decrease the need for pharmacological care, which in turn decreases length of stay for the babies. And I want to point out here also too, when you look to the right, you'll see the number of babies that have been identified with neonatal abstinence syndrome in comparison to the overall birth number for region 10. Next slide, please. This is NAS broken down by mom's race and ethnicity. And you'll see that we have disparities here in differences in the rates of NAS based on race and ethnicity. And then also to the right, I just want to draw your attention. This is region 10, but if you look in the box below for 2015 through 2019, you'll see the state of Michigan. So you'll see here that overall region 10 is a bit lower than the state for NAS. Next slide, please. This is birth defects prevalence by race, ethnicity in prosperity region 10 for 2017. So again, we're looking at the years throughout the birth years of 2010 through 2017. The birth defects prevalence for Michigan remained fairly steady. And then you look over to the right and you'll see the breakdown based on race and ethnicity for 2017. And Chris, I don't know if you want to unmute for a moment. Can you explain other? Is that multi-race, unknown? Is there a reason that the other bars listed so high?
So yeah, it's essentially, so this is just race actually. So the white is white only, black is black only. So other will be Hispanics, will essentially every other race in like Native American, Asian Pacific Islander, all those lumped into one.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris. And two important points, you'll see them on the bullets here to point out the race-specific birth defects prevalence rate for babies born to Black mothers exceeded that of the number of cases of babies born to white mothers. And also cases born to mothers of other races, as we just discussed. And then in 2017 also, the ethnicity-specific birth defect prevalence rate for babies born to mothers reporting as Arabic ethnicity was greater than the number of cases of babies born to mothers reporting as Hispanic ethnicity. Please. This slide shows the birth defect prevalence rates by prosperity region for 2017. So again, the prosperity region numbers you'll see here to the right are listed. You'll see region 10 in the pink. In the box to the left, you can see the total number of cases. And again, when I mentioned before that data, these are family members, you'll see the number of cases of birth defects in prosperity region 10 was 8,556 babies. And again, that's also the area of the state that has the highest number of births in our state of Michigan as well. Please. We're moving on to sleep-related deaths for prosperity region 10. You'll note that this is 2010 through 2018. So this is the latest data that we have at this point for sleep-related deaths. So between 2010 and 2018, there was almost 1,300, so 1,287 sleep-related deaths in the state of Michigan. The sleep-related death numbers, you'll see that they fluctuated if you look at the box to the left, and that's statistically significant between the different years. Important regarding the disparities, between 2010 and 2018, Black infants were 3.5 times more likely to die of sleep-related causes as compared to white infants. And so additional information for sleep-related causes, those are causes that aren't the result of sleeping, the result of the environment that the baby is sleeping in. Next slide, please. These are the sleep-related deaths broken down by prosperity region from 2010 through 2018. And again, we start on the left from the Upper Peninsula and move down to Southeast, Southwest Michigan, Southeast. Those both areas have been suppressed, and you see the Detroit metro area at a rate of 1.3 per 1,000 live births. And overall, in comparison to the state of Michigan, the Region 10 sleep-related infant death rate of 1.3 was similar to the Michigan sleep-related death rate of 1.3. And this is for the same rationale that Chris spoke of earlier, given the highly populated area of the region, particularly the city of Detroit. Next slide, please. We're going to transition now into maternal health outcomes. So we're moving into maternal morbidity for Region 10 for 2019. So you can see here, the bottom orange line is the state of Michigan. So from 2014 through 2019, you can see the severe maternal morbidity rate. And it's important to point out that this is per 10,000 deliveries in a hospital, delivery hospitalizations. And then up above, you'll see prosperity region 10, and you'll see the rates kind of go up and down a bit, but there's general, for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, this looks like an upward trend to me for region 10. And next we have severe maternal morbidity for prosperity region 10, broken down by race and ethnicity. And then into the right, you'll see the box, and this is in comparison to the state of Michigan. So the overall Michigan rates for severe maternal morbidity is 194.3 per 10,000 deliveries. And when you look at in prosperity region 10, it's 256.9. So definitely higher than the state of Michigan overall. And then when we move further and look at the rates broken down for white non-Hispanic moms, you'll see that it's 200 in region 10, and it's 157.6 for the whole state. So again, higher in region 10. And then for our Black non-Hispanic moms, 368 in region 10 and 321.1 in the state of Michigan. Next slide, please. We're moving into maternal mortality ratio for prosperity region 10. These years here are 2013 through 2017. Next slide, please. So we're looking again at the prosperity regions, and you'll see the orange line, which is Michigan, and Michigan, the maternal mortality ratio is 67.6. And I want to point out the last slide when we talked about maternal morbidity, that was per 10,000. This is per 100,000. So that's, again, positive because we have to look at a broader number of births than any mom that's lost. And in this case, there were 179 maternal deaths or moms that died between 2013 and 2017. Excusable. But you can see when you're looking at the state of Michigan in comparison to the prosperity regions, we see that in East Michigan, so that is prosperity region 6, or the thumb of Michigan, the maternal mortality ratio is extremely high. And then also in Detroit Metro, extremely high as well, as I just spoke of a moment ago. Next slide, please. So that ends our slideshow, and I thank you all for allowing us to speed through the slides. We wanted to share as much data as possible, but as a result, that had caused us to have to speak really quickly to go through them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vern, and we can start going through the Q&A portion.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris and Dawn. That was a lot of excellent information. And there were some questions. I'm going to mention some of those that was in the chat that maybe you can answer for us. But before I do that, I wanted to welcome Senator Geis from Taylor, who's here with us. And thank you, Senator, for all your work and leadership, particularly on, I think, breastfeeding, doulas, and things of that nature that really are priorities for SEMPQIC. So thank you for joining us. Couple questions here. Do we have, is it available, the infant mortality rates by zip code in Detroit, showing trends?
So the reason why we went with census tracts instead of zip codes for our maps is because, believe it or not, zip codes change over time. So it was difficult to map them. If you had particular zip codes of interest that we could determine that didn't change over time, we could combine years and see what the rates were, but it would kind of be a case-by-case basis for that.
Okay, thank you. I do recall seeing a few years ago, seeing some of that. Another question was on breastfeeding and the PRAMS data. Can you break down the PRAMS data in on Region 10 on breastfeeding? You pull out Region 10.
So I think, so there's particular instances where we can, if the reason, for instance, why we didn't do that for the prenatal care variables is because it was like such a subdivided population that the numbers are so small. But we do have like a 3-year combined data file that that is reweighted to, because the PRAMS is a weighted data set, so it's weighted to the state originally. The most appropriate way to do it, if you're looking at sub-geographic regions of the state, is to reweight the data to that particular region. So we do have a data set that we've done that for, so we could definitely look into that to see what we'd be able to provide for that.
So it's possible at a specific request.
Yeah.
The comment I wanted to make about PRAMS was related to sleep-related deaths. And it was not one of the slides that you shared, but there was a slide that showed that in the state of Michigan, that more babies are sleeping safer than in the past, that there has been an improvement in babies sleeping safer. And I'm just wondering if we could find that out for Region 10 and particularly for Detroit. We are still looking to peel the onion more in terms of the reduction in infant mortality, Black infant mortality in Detroit. So it would be very interesting if we could find out if babies are sleeping more safe in Detroit, since we don't have the numbers of deaths yet. Someone asked, what would we speculate in terms of the reduction in Detroit? And we try not to speculate, without some data, but we can talk about additional kinds of data that might be helpful to help give more information that we may. Some of the usual suspects like, low birth weight and premature birth did not go down. And if we were doing this without having the 2019 infant mortality rate, we would have guessed, oh, that must have went down, since obviously from what you shared, that is a huge part. But then so is sleep-related deaths, and are very small babies living longer? I don't know. One time when we had a reduction, it was because of some clinical change in how babies with weak lungs were treated. And at that year, we saw a major reduction in infant mortality. So you guys can maybe comment on that, but I would just say we don't like to speculate without data, but we do know that there's more information. If you were just to throw out what additional information you would like, would either of you be able to comment on that?
I think my only comment to that is from an epidemiology standpoint, I see it as the data is only a part of the story. Well, the quantitative data, I should say, is only part of the story, and having the quantitative data from the communities themselves provide more evidence of, or more inference into a potential association between a behavior and outcome. So we really do need both.
Yeah, this is Dawn. I completely agree with Chris. I think we absolutely need to delve further, look at the additional data points, some of which are the ones that you suggested, Vern. Look at qualitative data, speak with families, look at surrounding areas. And importantly, Chris mentioned the yellow areas on the census tract maps. Delve further into those yellow areas in the city of Detroit, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb. See what we can learn from those particular areas and the babies that did live to their first birthday in Region 10. So to find out more, as well as look at the landscape, programmatic changes, resource changes. It's very, obviously the world we live in is very complex.
Yeah, it might be interesting to also look at some data around social determinants of health, and was there any major changes, which when you talk about externally, are things that are worth also taking a look at.
Exactly, systems changes, changes in a variety of different access to care. Transportation's been discussed, which was seen on the Pram slide, but yeah, definitely delving in further. And then importantly, talking to families to gather more information as well.
Right, exactly. Miata Buxton had a question on sleep-related deaths. I need to go back and find out what that was. Could we map birthing hospitals and prenatal providers onto the Detroit map? That could be done. Someone asked that question. I'm certain. One of the things that we do look at in SEMPQIC is where babies are born, because many babies that have a Detroit address are born in maybe Oakwood, at Oakwood Hospital, outside of Detroit or Providence. So we kind of like to start with the babies because it's not always reflected in terms of the hospitals in Detroit, for example. But that is something that we could do region-wide, actually, which might benefit us. Somebody says they can't get to your slides, Chris. I don't know what's going on there. Somebody answered that.
So
yes, it will be available.
Vern,
Yes.
Vern, yeah, I was just going to say that all these slides are actually available on our MCH Epi section website right now. I'll throw the link in the chat.
So, I've already done that, Chris. I put the link in the chat. Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, it's a little bit down on that website, but you'll see like 2019 maternal and infant health statistics in all the regions, as well as a Michigan overall slide deck.
Okay, one last question. We're just a little bit behind, but not that much. Was the racial distribution of infant mortality comparable to the infant birth racial distribution? Does anybody know that?
I'm going to defer to Chris on that one.
I don't know that right offhand. I'm assuming yes, but we can definitely look into that.
We'll run that data as well as look into the params for Region 10 for breastfeeding too, Vernon. We'll get that back to the leadership team so you can send it on to your membership.
One question I had before.
I was looking. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, one question I had just before we switch to a different topic for the meeting. Is it possible that I can get like a transcript of this chat so I can go through after the fact and like address everything?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Dr. Mariona asked, is the FEMA program providing the information on neonatal deaths that you're looking for?
So, I mean, femur is a part of it, right? I mean, the neonatal
Mhm,
does come from a variety of different sources, but yes.
mhm. Okay,
Yes,
short
we have
answer.
a shout out to the City of Detroit Health Department. They have an excellent femur program, one of the best in the state. And I believe the femur team's actually in this meeting.
Exactly. And in terms of the maps that we were looking at, I had some questions, and we can always look at it later, about the Oakland County map. There were some regions way up in the Northwest, and I had no idea what city that might have been. And I'm just wondering if somebody from Oakland County could maybe put it on the chat. I mean, I always think Pontiac when I think about infant mortality, which I know is high in Pontiac. And some of the areas in Oakland County were increasing. I know we saw that. Let's see, is there any other question, guys, that you think we should answer? Chris and Dawn will, of course, get this entire list, and we will be sure every question is answered. Gwen Fossey asked, might the disparity in the incidence of birth defect rates between Black and white babies be the result of more prenatal care in whites contributing to prenatal diagnosis of serious birth defects resulting in termination of pregnancy, leading to lower incidence of birth defects in the white population? It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possible explanation. I can't tell you just from the data if that's actually the case.
Mhm.
Possible.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. And again, we will be sure all of these questions are answered. And if you think of any others that you didn't think of today, just send us an email. We'll be sure they get responded to. Moving on, making the data human, a qualitative understanding. So we've invited Robena Hill back because she spoke to our group before, or to some of you before. Robena is a doula with Black Mothers Breastfeeding, and has really done a fantastic job over the years. And we're going to ask her to share her perspective on the human side, and maybe a couple of her experiences with families. Robena, you're on.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to this space. I am Robena the doula with Black Mother Breastfeeding Association. I am a mother of 3 boys. I breastfed my youngest son. That was my first time breastfeeding, and we breastfed for 2.5 years. So just being a mother and benefiting from Black Mother Breastfeeding Association has made me even a better doula. My experience with, I had a young mother, and I'm gonna try my hardest not to cry. When I tell this story, I try every time not to cry. But a young mother who had lost her baby. Sadly, I became a grief doula in August 2019. A young mother lost her baby to sudden infant death. And it felt like I lost one of my own. It was very, very hard for me as a doula to be by mom's side, but I figured it out. I stuck by mom's side as much as possible. I was the shoulder to lean on. I was the shoulder to cry on. I was the hand to hold through the whole process that mother had to go through during her child's death. Thank God for the organization. We were able to hold her hand and help walk her through the process so she was not alone. Mother didn't have much family or friends, and didn't have really much help during this time. But thank God we were there to hold her hand and help her through the process. Mother decided to get pregnant again and have another baby. And she asked me to be her doula, and I was so happy and grateful that she came back, and she asked me to be her doula and wanted me there by her side. It was during COVID, so I was virtually there by her side as much as possible during our visits with her, and I was just steadily educating mom, and mom has a beautiful 8-month-old boy, and mom and family is doing fine. I do check up on mom periodically, just to make sure she's okay. And some days are better than others. And it was very hard for mom to be pregnant again and deal with the hard times and the hardships of not having her other child there, and a lot of guilt. And I was able to just talk to mom and lead her in the right direction to where let's talk to someone professionally, a therapist or a psychiatrist. Let's see if we can get you some type of help where you're able to deal with the stress and the pain a little bit better than what you are doing. And mom was able to reach out and get a therapist, and she actually thought it was working. It was working for her. And when mom decided to when she had her baby, she had a lot of struggles with going back and forth of feeling depressed and missing her other child. Mom did already have a 1-year-old at that time, he's almost 3 now. And then she also have her new baby who is 8 months. So mom, last time I checked in on her, she was doing very well. It was the baby Tori who passed away. It was her birthday. And I just checked on her and said, well, how are you doing? And how things are going. And she actually said, I'm at peace. I feel good. So I know that my baby is at peace. So that was good to hear that the therapy is working for mom. Just being able to have that support, someone to talk to, someone to help you go in the right direction, because when you're depressed, you just break down sometime and you don't know where to go or which way you should go. And having someone to talk to and having that support is more than enough, more than you can imagine. And mom was very grateful even to come back and have another baby with the organization was amazing. And mom and baby and the family, like I said before, are doing just fine. Now here at BEMFA, we are also taking in mothers who may be suffering, who may end up suffering a miscarriage. And we're there to actually be a support to them still. I have had a couple moms who wanted our services and sadly came back and updated me and let me know that they had suffered a miscarriage. And I was there to be any type of support that I could be for mom. If mom needed to talk to a psychiatrist, I was able to help her find one, or just at least talk to her insurance company to see if they would cover the visits. We also sometimes may get mothers who are scared and worried about having a baby, or maybe has suffered a miscarriage and scared to go on and have a baby again, and scared the same thing may happen, or maybe experiencing some high risk pregnancies. So we're there to support in every way that we can. It's amazing how we doulas, how we work, and how we're able to be a great support to everyone. A lot of times mothers go in, they worry just about being a great mother. And we're there to help ease their worries, offer different classes, especially if they're going to breastfeeding classes, childbirth education, different things like that, different classes we don't offer. We are able to point them in the right direction to other organizations that may be able to offer these classes for them and get them any type of help that they can get as far as resources. If they need resources, that definitely will help ease their worries. Some others may, oh my God, I'm pregnant. This was not planned. I don't know how I'm going to be able to put diapers on my baby, or be able to put clothes on my baby back, or get the tools that I need to take care of my child. And we're there. We're here to give them those resources. Oh my goodness. I think that's how I got my job. I'm like the resource queen in my community. And when I had my doula, I would give her resources to share with her mothers and families. And I just feel so happy if I'm able to help someone, and definitely share those resources to get those baby items that they're may be needing. And there's different organizations that's willing to help. And so mothers may not be aware of that. And I'm just happy that we can point them in the right direction to make sure that they get all the proper things that they need. And then also just to hold their hand along the way to ease their worries. We don't want them to be worried. We want them to, we don't want them to be worried. We want them to have a cool, settling birth, labor and delivery. We wanted to, be able to match their birthing plan. And we go over different affirmations with mothers so they don't worry, so that they know that their body is made for this and they are powerful, just to ease their mind. And so when it's that time for labor and delivery, they'll be like, okay, I remember my affirmations. I remember what my doula went over with me. I got this. especially in that golden hour. Oh my God, I preach so much about that golden hour. Do that skin to skin. Definitely breastfeed your baby within the hour that baby is born. You want to make sure the baby has a great latch, a great bond. Make sure the baby get that liquid gold, the colostrum, the most important part. So we're here for mothers everywhere that we can. We are here for mothers. If you need a doula, definitely reach out to Black Mother Breastfeeding Association, which we call BEMFA. And if you're not able to get a doula, we still have the services with Breastfeeding Club, where mother is still able to be educated. The club is going on weekly, and we're getting ready to go back into the field. So we're going to have in person. I'm so sorry. We're going to be able to have in person visits with our mothers, and with Breastfeeding Club as well. We're going to do in person and virtual as well. And I am just so happy that I will be able to get back and hug on some babies. And I miss that. I love it when my mothers update me with pictures and video clips and send it to me, and I get to see my babies. Normally we're in the field, so we get to see them when we do our home visits. But now it's like we are working from home on Zoom, and we really can't touch and smell and hug on our babies and just love on them. So it's really important when mothers send us videos and pictures during this time. So it makes us understand what we do and why we do what we do. And it's just a joy to have those families and to be able to help other families and just be that hand to hold and that shoulder to cry on, and just walk along their path with them and help ease their worries any and every kind of way that we can. I think I covered a little bit of everything. I do know some mothers, they do worry about C-sections. If they have to have a C-section, they can't have a VBAC. And we're there to help them create a C-section birthing plan to still make sure their needs are met, and to still make sure the doctors and the nurses are on the same page with them. So we're there to hold their hand. I'm sorry, I work in a car because my toddler, and he is banging on the window. I hope you guys cannot hear. I do apologize, but yes, we are here to help them in any way that we can, and just hold their hands, and just to make a change and let them know they're not alone. I even have my cousin as a mom. I'm her doula, and she sadly was not ready to get pregnant again, and she doesn't have anyone there, and her mother will be babysitting her other child, and she's like, I hope you're in the field. I need you there. You'll be my only support. And I'm praying that we're there to help her along her journey, and just to make sure that I can support her in every way that I can, even though she's my cousin. But even if she's a stranger, I still give her the same love and affection, just to be there to help her along her journey.
Well, Robena, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For being with us, for sharing, and thank you for the work that you do. Obviously, it's a labor of love. And we do know that Robena is just one of many. There are other doulas, and doulas working especially in the African-American community that are also African-American and from the community makes a huge difference. We really wanted to put a face on the babies, that are lost. And I think the example you shared really shows it's not just a one point in time. We looked at the data in 2019, X number of babies died. But then when you think about the impact on that mother, the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and future pregnancies, and stress, which again, we all know contributes to some of the kinds of data that we saw. Are there any questions for Robena? Someone asked how to reach Black mothers breastfeeding if they're interested in getting a doula. If somebody could put that in the chat, how to make that contact, that would be very helpful. Yeah, so, okay, well, again, we're just really pleased that you were able to join us. And this is what we're talking about, making a difference, not just in the numbers, making a difference in the lives of the families and mothers and babies. And we thank you so much. I know that Amy Zagman is on the call. I think she's still here, as well as Senator Geis. And I know there are policy and advocacy issues that relates to doulas that might be a good idea for those of you that are interested, if somebody could add that to the chat, and we'll be sure you have that. Because we have work to do to make sure that doulas are available, as well as getting paid, from a more reliable source and as a sustainable piece of the system in our network here in Region 10 and around the state. So I see we have the information for Black Mothers Breastfeeding. And thank you for Robena for giving us your phone number. I don't want you to get 100 calls all at once, but we appreciate that. And again, if there are policy issues that people would like to know about, I'm going to ask Amy to put some things in the chat for us. So thank you so much, Robena. We love you.
Thank you for having me. I love you guys too.
Yes. Moving on, equity, racism, impacts on data. Alethia is going to walk us through that so that we can understand the broader concept of what we're dealing with some of the numbers that we've seen.
Thanks, Vern. You all placed me in a tough position following Robena. Robena, I love you, and thank you for all the work that you do. I'd like to take the last few minutes tonight to discuss the impact of systemic racism on the health of our community. Next slide. Let's put the information that's been shared into context and take a look at the definition of racism, which refers to prejudicial treatment based on race or ethnicity and the societal institutions or structures that perpetuate this unfair treatment. It can be expressed on interpersonal, structural, or institutional, or internalized levels. And Dr. Kamara Jones said that racism saps the strength of our entire society through the waste of human resources as the full potential of those that are marginalized goes unrealized. Next slide. When we look at structural racism, it's defined as the totality of ways in which societies foster discrimination, usually racial, through mutually reinforcing systems that are inequitable. Using those systems that we talk about as social determinants of health, like housing, education, employment, earnings, media, healthcare, and that in turn reinforce discriminatory beliefs, values, and distribution of resources reflected in our history, culture, and interconnected institutions. Glenn Harris, hold on, please. Glenn Harris defined structural racism as the complex interaction of culture, policy, and institutions that holds in place the outcomes we see in our lives. It's also called systemic racism or institutional racism. And Rukia Yerby has said, structural racism describes the way our systems are structured to produce racial inequalities between whites and racial and ethnic minorities in the social determinants of health, leading to racial health disparities. Excuse me, just 1 minute, I have a dog.
Your baby's barking, Alethia.
Alethia's puppy is kind of new. He's a puppy. Okay, you're muted, so open up.
Sorry. Excuse me, please. I asked for this puppy, and my goodness, it's just like having a baby. Moving on. So I'd like to share with you, since we've talked about infant and maternal specific health data, I'd like for us to consider some additional statistics that affect everyday life as shared by raceforward.org of Color Lines and the American Public Health Association. African Americans are twice as likely to be unemployed. Next slide. Black students are 3 times more likely than white students to be suspended for the same infractions. Next slide. Blacks are shown 18% fewer homes, and 4% fewer rental units than whites. Next slide. While Blacks make up 13% of the general population, we're 40% of the prison population. Next slide. Black drivers are 30% more likely to be pulled over. And one study found that 67% of doctors have a bias against African American patients. Next slide. Putting all this together, along with the data and the scenarios we've discussed tonight, is important to consider as we look at how to change the trajectory of health outcomes for Black and Brown people. And I'm not suggesting that we align our focus on population change, but rather on the policies and practices related to this data that we've shared tonight. When thinking about change ideas, I heard it suggested that we use a litmus test for any change idea before using it. If we locate the problem in the person, look at the policy that caused the disinvestment. Next slide, please. This graphic was created by R. Yerby, a lawyer with an MPH, professor at St. Louis University, that revised the social determinants of health framework. It's designed to show and prime government and public health officials to understand the connection between racism, structural discrimination, law, systems, and racial health disparities. And if you look at the Black column on the far left, that's the root cause. It illustrates that root cause is structural discrimination. Those isms we know about, sexism, racism, ableism, classism, which is supported by tools or laws, political processes, statutes, budget decisions, regulations, and enforcements that are applied to the systems. If you look at the circles on the 4 circles that are here, those systems that we talk about as social determinants of health, like public health and healthcare, neighborhoods and built environment, education, economic stability, that work to impact our health and well-being, emerging as the data we've just reviewed. We have to address the root cause in order to change the health outcomes we continue to see. So we really have to work backwards and address the root cause that's impacting the disparate health metrics that we've seen and talked about this evening. Next slide. The American Public Health Association has declared racism a public health crisis when Dr. Kamara Jones was president in 2016. APHA has a website that identifies 208 areas across the country, including Michigan, that has identified racism as a public health crisis. And I've highlighted here those other areas within the state of Michigan that have also identified racism as a crisis. I've included the link to the website in case you want to look at it, because as you look at the map that is included here, the dots that are on the various states identify the areas within those states that are addressing racism as a way of a crisis. This map shows the areas across the country, and it includes it recognizes that if government is identifying racism as a public health crisis, action must be taken. Next slide. I close with this final slide that shares the components of the recently funded initiative of SEMPQIC to establish a Detroit Health Equity Network that will be a web-based resource for easy access to health equity information related to maternal and infant health. The effort includes a collective impact advisory committee that's helping to inform our project. And as you can see outlined in red, part of the project will include a health equity data dashboard that will have metrics such as environmental air contaminants, nearness of supermarkets, number of alcohol outlets, food insecurity rates, homelessness, households paying more than 30% of their income for housing, ratio of primary care and mental health providers to population, as well as other metrics that reflect the overall environment of the area. Along with those metrics that we've heard about tonight, infant mortality rates, low birth weight rates, as well as maternal morbidity and mortality. This 3-year project funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation has a strong evaluation component and is designed to bring greater attention to efforts that improve equity in the community. And hopefully next year, we'll be able to include some of the data dashboard metrics in our annual data meeting. I'd like to remind you that Juneteenth is Saturday. Please do something in recognition of it. If you don't know what that is, at least look it up, and that could be your activity for addressing Juneteenth. I'll also mention, and just saw tonight, that it has become a federal holiday. It was signed into law, as a matter of fact, this evening.
Clapping.
That's right. So I'll stop here. I think, Vern, we do have time for questions. Or I
Yeah.
don't know if there are any in the chat.
Well, Erica Geis wanted to add the cities of Romulus and Westland have also declared racism as a public health crisis.
Wonderful,
So that's good. We can add them to the map.
wonderful.
So we can open it up from questions from the floor and or comments for a few minutes. I don't see any on our chat.
I will say one of the important aspects of working with the areas that have identified racism as a public health crisis is to better understand the efforts that they're involved in and helping to support them. So, you know, if there are areas for our listeners that are near you and you saw your area listed, you may want to inquire what is going on to make a change in the system that of that area.
There is a question. How do you see the new law, the laws required for licensure to affect provider-patient relationships?
For implicit requirement for implicit bias?
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good first step. And we've heard several folks talk about how it is not all that's needed, but it certainly is a good first step to beginning to understand how we've approached our work over time, what our own implicit bias are and how they have affected the work that we do, and what else we need to better understand to make the change so that we are providing equitable service to our patients, clients, community.
Exactly. And I think at least some of you have seen the video Toxic, A Day in the Life, a Black Woman's Day in the Life, that goes through the stress of a day of an average college-educated Black woman that puts her at risk, racism, and the conversation with the provider that's in that video is just one example of how African Americans are treated. And we say implicit bias, and sometimes it's not so implicit, but we've got a long way to go. But I'm pleased that the governor recognized it as something that needed to be done.
Mhm.
And we really need to start a lot with medical students and young people going into all healthcare professions.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other thing I want to mention about the Health Equity Network is that it is our intention to help share positive things, that are going on, and data about, African Americans, particularly African Americans, since that's our target as it relates to maternal mortality. Thank you, Dawn, for putting up information on toxic. If you are aware of any data or information that you think should be on our Health Equity Network, shoot an email to Alethia.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat.
Put your contact there, Alethia. And one of the things that I want to mention as we were looking at the data in terms of NAS, Blacks are much less likely to be using the drugs that relates and creates the neonatal abstinence syndrome. So it's fewer, less in our Black community. Also less smoking in the Black community. Yet we still have a very high infant mortality rate. So please pay attention to social determinants of health as well as the impact of racism. We have too often blamed the victim and really only focus on what can I do to help Black people behave better, eat better, whatever, so their babies don't die. So keep in mind that the totality of the discussion that we have tonight. If you want to have toxic, I see you can view it from the state website. But along with that, if you want to show the video to a group, to your group, to your network, to your clients, it is available through SEMPQIC, and we will work with you in terms of the guide that goes along with it, as well as providing a speaker if that's necessary, if you would like. So you could also access Toxic, A Day in the Life of a Black Woman from SEMPQIC. Karen put here, Karen Schrock. Karen, do you want to go ahead and make your comment? Out loud?
Yeah, my comment is that we have looked at a lot of data tonight. And I think we've got questions and people are asking, what can we speculate? But I think Alethia's presentation at the end just brought it home that we need to stop as a group of healthcare providers focusing too much on the individuals and not enough on the systems. And so I think that's a good closing message for us. To whatever capacity we're in, we've got to focus on the system that we're a part of and what we can do to make it more welcoming and accessible.
Yep. Thank you. Iris, Dr. Taylor, are you still with us? I was gonna ask Iris if she had any closing comments. Dawn, do you have any kind of closing comments that you would like to make?
Thank you, Vern. I echo what Karen and Alethia said. We need to strive to address root cause. And I know the important programs and services that so many of us offer, need to continue while we're addressing the root causes and changing the structure that our families are living in that are making them sick and literally killing them. When we look at the cases, this is urgent. It is a crisis that needs to be addressed immediately because we're losing lives every single day in our state.
All right. So why don't we move on and we can wrap up. It's okay to finish a little early. Is there anybody from the group that's out there that wants to make any verbal comment? I appreciate the comments that we're seeing on the chat. Before I move forward with closing, where do we go from here? Okay, where do we go from here? This is really just the, you want to go back to our, is there a slide before this one, Dawn? I mean, Evan? Guess not.
No, this is it.
Okay, where do we go from here? We will review the chat, like I said before, and ensure that all questions are answered. And I was pleased that Chris is definitely gonna spend some time on the chat because some of the questions are technical. The meeting slides will be sent following the meeting and available on MDHHS website. Are we saying, Devin, that the meeting slides will be sent to all the participants?
Correct. That's correct. We're gonna send that to everybody.
Meeting. Thank you. SEMPQIC will be using this data for our strategic planning. We will be entering into a strategic planning process sometime during the summer. So this data will be very helpful to us, along with the social determinants of health and the data that we have on deconstructing racism and its impact on health. And we'll continue to work with MDHHS and others to dig deeper and better understand the why behind the numbers. And again, if you are inclined to offer your thoughts, and those of you on the call are experts also, if you're inclined to offer your thoughts on what additional data do we really need to look at in order to get closer to the why. So that's what we'll be doing next. I think we have one last slide.
We've got a
Couple, okay.
just so everybody knows, I'm gonna pop the links to register for our June and September meetings in the chat. And I'm also going to put the meeting for the link for the evaluation in the chat right now. Please feel free to register for either meeting and to complete the meeting evaluation.
Yes, complete the evaluation. Hopefully it's almost as soon as you get it, the longer you wait, the harder it is to get to it, and we really do need it. So in closing, consider this: defining racism as a system not only moves beyond the current limited conceptions of racism in the social determinants of health framework and law, it also ensures that solutions crafted to end racism changes the system. And in addition to our public health work and community health work, we want to be involved in helping to dismantle racism and its very negative impact on African Americans, but also other populations here in Region 10 and statewide. So with that, I'm going to ask my team, is there anything else we need to put out there? If not, I want to thank everybody for participating. And again, we look forward to hearing from you if you have any additional thoughts. So good night. It's still daylight. Isn't that wonderful? Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.